Hey guys, we hope that you've been enjoying these daily and weekly rhythms as we've been navigating this season together. Today is Thursday Thoughts, and I took some time and interviewed a friend of mine, Jeff Moores. He's an amazing dude. He's a pastor of a brand new church plant up in Oceanside called Rhythm Church, and they're doing an amazing job. They just launched in January, and they only gathered for a few months before this whole thing hit, and so he's been leading his church through that, a brand new church plant. And so I took some time to interview him on his thoughts on lament and even despair and what that might mean in this season. So I hope you guys enjoy. We're in a series right now on Lamentations, and it was really kind of sparked by this idea that the normal like platitudes or even encouraging words that we would want to bring and give, hope for people, um, kind of stopped working after like week two of this, the whole thing. Like people were, I think, at least the people that I'm connected with, and even in my own life, I'm not like a really high feeler. So I'm not all that in touch with my emotions. I think part of it's just the way I'm wired. Part of it's my job as a fireman. You learn how to just kind of push that stuff out. And so it's been interesting being in this kind of prolonged season of crisis and leading through that. And so we as a pastoral team, we just started thinking about what does it actually mean to lament, and how can we give people permission to not to sit in their feelings for too long, but to acknowledge them, to address them, but most importantly, to bring them before God. And that's what you see in the book of Lamentations, right? Is just a pretty honest expression of anguish to God. And I think that's a really cool reality of who our God is, that God allows us to come to him, even in an accusatory way, right? Like if you read through Lamentations, I mean, God's getting blamed for all sorts of stuff, right? In the book of Lamentations. And in the first chapter, I mean, you literally hit themes of loneliness, you hit themes of shame, and then like today what we're focused on is despair. Like, man, what happens in that moment in your life when you're just in despair, when you're out of hope, when you've lost the ability to even believe anything better can be, on the other side of this. And I guess like my question for you, man, is like maybe twofold, is like, have you ever found yourself in that place? And how did you lead yourself through it? How did you sit in it? How did you get through it? And then how do you help others through that? As a pastor, what has that been like for you?
Man, well, I think one of the loneliest, craziest times of despair I ever went through was back in 2009. And I was a part of a church. I was the youth pastor there, and had rad youth ministry, incredible things happening, people getting saved all the time. It was just awesome. It was like revival had broken out amongst, like young people in my area. And our church, the leadership made some bad choices. And so things started to kind of crumble and fall apart. And I was in the middle of it. And I wanted so badly to leave, and I wanted so badly to be done. And in the middle of that crisis, my grandma, who was very much like a mother to me, she passed away, and I was at her bedside, and it was brutal. And like literally, I wanted to curl up and do nothing except cry. Like that was the season and the stage of life. My wife, like looking back on it, like in the time, she was strong, she was solid, she was there for me, but she was scared for me during that time, because she was like, I don't know if Jeff will ever recover from this. I mean, it was that dark, it was that heavy. And in that time, I would cry out to the Lord. I would pace my house and I would just cry out to the Lord, very honest, very, very Psalms like, very Lamentations like, and I would hear nothing. Nothing like there wouldn't be, my son, my child, I comfort thee, like it was more, I would cry out, Lord, let me leave this situation. And he would say, no. That was it. That's all I heard from the Lord was no. Going through that time was so brutal, but it forged such character in me. And it solidified some things on how I feel about the church in general. Because at the very end of all of it, I was able to look back and see how God was working. I was able to
Wow.
look back and see that it was God's timing. I was able to look back and see that it was more about my obedience and less about my feelings in those circumstances. Like,
Mm,
would I obey God? Would I stay
right.
even though I didn't want to? Would I, you know, like,
Right.
and at the very end of it, man, I still loved the church and I still loved God. And I was
Mm,
able to see that it was all really his perfect timing in all of it. You know, like it actually, the timing wise led to Think International, which then led to working at North Coast down here in North County, which now, I mean, eventually
wow.
led to Rhythm Church. So, you know,
Wow.
it's funny, man. Everyone, like I was thinking about today, read some of the articles you sent me and I read through Lamentations and all that. And, you know, it's funny, like everyone's pain is real because it's their pain.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and I think we get into trouble when we start to compare pain. You know, like, is my pain worse than your pain? You know, is
Mm,
my situation worse than your situation?
right.
Because I mean, we can look at right now and we can go,
Yeah.
boo hoo, we're on lockdown. You know, how many other countries have been
Right.
like war torn and ravaged for decades, and yet it's normal life for
Right.
them. And we're like,
Yeah.
I'm stuck in my house with Netflix and you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and
In
snacks. You know,
in
I'm
in San
really working on
Diego.
that COVID
Yeah.
19. Yeah, in San Diego, and so, but still, like our pain is our pain. You know, this is
Yeah.
like depression is kicking in for people. It's becoming very real. And I think it's important that in this season, you never compare your pain to others, but you just
Mm,
lean into the Lord, and He cares for you in it. Does that make sense?
yeah. Yeah. That's so good. I think that's, man, that's, you're speaking real talk in terms of the way I've been even processing my own um, agony or despair or pain, even in this season. Man, the comparison trap, right? Is just like I immediately
Yeah.
go to, man, I don't have it that bad, and then I don't even allow those emotions in, but they're there, right? If
Right.
you don't address them
Yeah.
and bring them before
Yeah.
God, and even share them with your most trusted people, right? Your wife, your spouse,
Exactly. Yeah.
um, your closest friends, man. It can get really toxic in your soul, you know. And I think
Totally.
that's one of the
Yeah.
most powerful
But it's,
things that we see in the book of Lamentations, right? Is that like somebody took the time to write it, to express it,
yep.
you know?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
that's good.
No, and I think that's, you know, in leadership, especially because, you know, we're trying to lead through this. I'm trying to leading a church through this. Like, we're trying to be, you know, like cheerleaders in a sense. But I mean, that's why I love the honesty of the Bible, is because, you know, a book like that is in there,
Hmm.
you know, because Psalms is in there, and
Yeah.
David is the king of a country, but he's, you know, like weeping and depressed and crazy, you know, at times. And I think
Right.
I feel that. And
Right.
if we don't, and if we're not able to be honest, you know, like able to, you know, at least for pastors to call other pastors, you know, like Jeff Snodgrass is on here. We talked the other day, like, and say like, I'm
Yeah.
going a little bit nuts, dude. Like I'm, you know, like I'm not, you know, I was on one of these Insta lives with Benny Perez, and you know, just
Hmm.
talking through, like, sometimes I feel like I can conquer the world through this, and then other times I'm like, what the heck is going on? What the heck happened? You know,
Right.
like we
Right.
planted a church and now this, are we going to be able to survive? You know, giving's down. Like there's
Mm.
all those things that start to roll through your
Right.
head. Um, and I
Yeah.
think if you as a leader, you know, like old school leadership was like, never let them see you suffer. Only tell the
Right.
victory stories and stuff like that. But I think
Mm.
if we as leaders are honest about what we're going through, I think it gives other people permission to be honest and to feel what they're feeling as well too.
Man.
But I think it is always important that we always, you know, of course, being a person of faith, that you kind of follow the
Yeah.
the pattern of Psalms. Like, life sucks, everything, all the enemies want to kill me. Oh, but wait, God's good and He will deliver me. And then, you
Right.
know, like, to have a lot of those prayers is
Yes.
powerful, man. You know,
Yeah, yeah, that's
yeah,
so good, man. I love that. Even just noticing that kind of cultural shift in leadership, right? Like, um, and it's such, I don't know about you, but I feel like
yeah,
we're still in kind of the transition of that and trying to find the the amount of vulnerability that's okay to share as a leader, right? Because, like you said,
yeah,
we're still responsible for helping the whole story arc, makes sense for folks, right?
Yep.
And, you know, I love
Totally.
even in this book of Lamentations, like in fact, Shalice, one of our pastors who really inspired this whole series for us, is actually online right now watching. And she actually has
Yeah.
a
What's up, Shalice?
tattoo from Lamentations that literally says, "There may yet be hope," right? And that's like literally one of the only hopeful messages in the entire book of Lamentations, right? It's like, you know,
Right.
but it's there, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
like, as a leader, one of our responsibilities is to help people sift through all of those things and find that hope, right? That give that
Yeah.
message there, but there may yet be hope, right?
Yeah,
While
exactly.
not minimalizing or not overlooking people's true emotions, true feelings, true, you know, desperation in this season. And it's a challenging thing to do for others when you might be going through it on your own, you know.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's what we're called to do, and that's what we're
exactly.
entrusted to do, right? So
Right.
how is this season for you? So you talked about, it was 2009, right? We're like gnarly season of your life.
Yeah.
Has this even held a candle to that, or has this just been like more annoying, frustrating? Like what's this season been like for you?
You know, so this season for me has been, I think I've been too busy to feel a little bit, you know, like, because
Mm,
we've had to pivot, change things. I'm more concerned with other people than I am right now, you know, myself. And
mm-hmm.
so I think in that way, it's been a distraction in a good way, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Our kids cool, our kids set up, are the school going to go well with them, all of that. You know, but I
Mm-hmm.
had a moment the other day where we were getting ready, we're putting, you know, like we're finally getting worship into the mix of our online experience. And I was watching the video that they'd done, and I'm doing it from like the standpoint of like, okay, what's the audio quality? What's the picture like? You know, like, is it going to play
Yeah.
well online? Or is it going to be
Mm-hmm.
weird? And I went in with that mindset, but pretty soon I'm like lost in worship, and I'm just in my room and I'm weeping. I'm like crying like
Wow.
a man, and
Yeah.
because I
Come on.
I just I missed worshiping with these people, you know, with our church,
Mm,
with the
man.
rhythm community,
Yeah.
um, and that was like a real raw moment for me where I was like, oh, this is impacting me, this is affecting me, you know,
Right.
um, and because right now, dude, for me, I think when I do slow down, I get flooded with massive insecurities, um,
Mm-hmm.
of, you know, are we going to have a church after this? The insecurities of, uh, you know, like, was that message even good? I tried to preach it in
Mm,
23 minutes, you know, did it even play well across the camera? You know, like, I don't know if
right.
you've ever had to sit and watch yourself over and over and over again. It can be brutal,
Oh,
you know,
dude.
like, and,
It's
you know,
brutal,
you
man.
get
It's
that,
the
the worry, the
worst.
doubt. It is. It is, so you get like insecurities, doubt, all that stuff. But then you have those moments again, like I'll go on prayer walks and just do whatever I can to kind of reset my focus, because
Mm-hmm.
it's a vulnerable time for us as pastors, leaders, and communicators. You can, now that everyone's sitting at church, I mean, you can go have church with the best of the best. You know what I
Totally.
mean? Like
Right.
that,
Yeah.
you know, that have the amazing production. I was talking to a buddy about this the other day. Um, he's out in Vegas, and he was like, because they're tuning into a few different churches, and he's like, and you know, this one was
Mm-hmm.
this, and this one was that. I go, man. I go, that's like. And he said we're gonna watch yours like next. And I go, well, don't expect it to be like, you know, like, because they were talking about Transformation Church, Michael Todd. Like, I don't got
Oh,
that
come on.
stage.
Yeah.
I don't have
Right. Or
somebody
that voice,
involved,
or even
or
an
that
iota of
voice.
that much
Yeah.
energy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
sure,
You know,
man. But
so
on the other end, here's been something really cool that I've noticed, and I'm sure you have too, is the boundaries have been erased in terms of physical building and
yes,
all of that sort of stuff. So what we're
yeah,
seeing, like literally, we had a staff member, a former staff member who was on our staff for years, that moved to Colorado and said that she feels closer to Makers now than she ever did when she lived here.
yeah,
And I
wow,
have friends, you know, that live in different parts of the country or even the world that are like, hey, Makers is officially our church again. And like we felt like it could
Yeah,
be our church because we didn't live in San Diego anymore. And now we feel like it's our church. It's our church again. And so it's
yeah,
been really, really neat to even see like the paradox of what you just talked about, right? The like, man, you can get
100%.
access to anybody you want now. Yeah, there's still
Yep,
folks that God's entrusted us with to steward and to
yep,
shepherd that for whatever reason
yeah.
God connected our hearts together, and now the physical distance barriers are no longer there, you know, which has been pretty cool.
Totally. Well, and when people, and that's what you're learning is that people will tune into you because you're their pastor, because they
Right.
want to hear what Makers has to say. Like
Yeah.
you're like, and so in that realm, that's something that I've been seeing over and over again. And I feel like each church kind of carries its own spirit a little bit. And
Yeah.
that's why for me, worshiping with CJ and Christina, our worship leaders, was just so powerful for me, because
Right. Yeah.
like it carries that spirit, and people tune into that, and people love that. And man, the same,
Yeah.
we've had people that I used to youth pastor back in the day that are now tuning into Rhythm every weekend and like
So
excited
good.
about it, and they're up in Washington.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're out there. That
Yeah.
like this has been a season. I think it's good for the church because it's caused us to wake up and move
Hmm.
from the come and see model to the go and tell model. That we're now
Right.
going into literally everyone's living rooms,
Yeah.
and on their
Yeah.
Instagram and all that stuff, and using the
Yeah.
technology of today, leveraging it to make that
Yeah.
difference and to really bring the message of hope. Um,
Yeah.
and,
That's so good.
I go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you're talking about the moment that you had when you were kind of tactically reviewing the worship before it got spit out, and you got caught up in a moment of that, you know.
Yeah.
Same thing, man. Like, just I live for an emergency, right? I mean, obviously being a fireman, like I love the fray, I love the chaos, and so it's
Yeah.
been, the early days of this were kind of fun. Like, man, we've got a huge problem, let's solve it. Like, let's go. And I didn't realize how much I was being affected and impacted either by like the shutdown, right? And the funny thing is like I'm still going to work. I work in a firehouse with 8 dudes. I'm not like I haven't been holed up at my house this whole time. However, I
Right.
didn't realize how much I missed being together as a church until Good Friday. And I mean, I knew like if you asked me, yeah, I miss everybody. But
Yeah.
on Good Friday, we did a church-wide Zoom communion, and it was the
Wow.
first time I had seen everybody's faces since
Yeah.
the shutdown. And it just, dude, it literally caught me off guard, and I just was done. I was like,
Wow.
and it wasn't even, it was just seeing their faces at the same time, being tuned in
Yeah.
together, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like this really is affecting me. These little
Yeah.
punks, look at these guys.
Hey!
Um, so anyways, man, well, let's do some closing thoughts, man, around
Yeah.
what you might have to think or share about Lamentations, or even just the man, permission to feel, right? Permission
Yeah.
to lament. Like, what do you got? These kids are going to blow this thing up in like 2 seconds. So
Gotcha. No, so closing thoughts. One, I love it that it's a real book. And right now, for our generation, for people alive today, they want authenticity, and they want the permission to feel. They want the permission to lament, to cry, to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like it's important for us always to remember too that Lamentations is a book within the whole of Scripture.
So good.
And it ends in hope, and it ends with win, and God's for us, and God loves us.
Mm-hmm.
And we read that book through the lens of Christ, who came and fulfilled it all. And though we I think like there's sorrow for the night, but joy comes in the morning.
Come on.
And anytime that you're feeling despair, anytime that you're feeling like hardship and sadness and all this craziness, know that it's only a season. And seasons change, and I like to say that if you're going through hell, keep going. Like, don't stop.
Come on.
Don't sit in it, because it's just going to prolong it. I think in this time more than ever, it's important for us to be in prayer, and for us to be in our word, and for us to be connecting with other people, whether it's your pastor, your friends, whatever, but other people of faith that aren't just going to talk right now about politics and how this isn't being handled right, and this so on and so forth. What's the hope in this situation? And the hope is Jesus. and
Come on.
we're all going to be all right.
Yeah,
we can be good.
that's so good, man. So good, Jeff. Hey,
Yeah.
thanks so much, man, for
Of course,
tuning in,
bro.
man, and making time and dealing with the technical difficulties, brother. I can't
All
wait,
good,
man,
dude.
until this thing's over. We can get together, maybe go for a surf.
Yes.
And
Come on.
you know, if you've still got that sponsorship going with LaCroix, man, I'd love a case,
Dude, I've
man.
switched to AHA, bro.
Oh,
I've
aha.
switched. Yeah,
Love it,
dude.
dude. Right
So,
on, brother.
right,
Well, dude,
man.
many blessings to you, man, and
You
Rhythm
too,
Church,
bro.
dude. We're rooting for you. We're in your corner, man. Love you, dude.
Ditto, man. Ditto. Love you
All
too,
right.
bro. All right.
Later,
Bye.
buddy. All right, bye.
Later. All right.